Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We can be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring living in a sacred way. My teacher taught me hundreds of ceremonies. He insisted I perform them exactly the way he taught me every time. After studying with him for over 4 years, I came to believe the man had ceremony for everything stored in that formidable mind of his, and he would not be happy until he branded every one of them into my brain. It was frustrating when he'd not allow me to vary one iota from protocol. He even dictated where I took the breath and the chants. Every drum beat had to be precise, or he'd make me start over from the beginning. "Why can't I just pick up from where I made the mistake?" I complained one day when I'd made it almost to the end of a lengthy ceremony only to mess up again. "I don't want you to perform the ceremony, Wiyaka. I want you to become it." What the heck did it mean to become it? I had no idea. Imagine my surprise when he finally informed me I was not to use a single ceremony he had taught. Why? They're Lakota ceremonies. Your people are not Lakota. You need ceremonies for your people. "So when will you teach me the ceremonies for my people?" I demanded in exasperation. "I don't have ceremonies for your people. That's yours to do." "But where am I going to find ceremonies for my people?" I wailed in despair. It was then he did something rare for him. He touched me. Tapping over my heart with one wrinkled, arthritic brown finger, he said, "You have become the ceremonies. They will come from your heart as you need them." Since that day, I've been asked to perform more ceremonies than I can count. I've married people, buried people, named them, and helped them divorce. I've blessed newborns, cleared houses, broken curses, and sealed the land. I've called the rain, turned the wildfire, blessed the planting, and given gratitude for the harvest. When called upon to perform a ceremony for others, I go into a shamanic journey trance and ask to be given the appropriate ceremony for the time, place, and participants to best serve all concerned. The imprint of my teacher's ancient ceremonies serve as a template. Spirit provides the rest. This is true living ceremony, and it carries amazing power. Ceremony and ritual utilize alignment with life and group agreement to influence outcome. Working at the quantum level, they create an environment supporting group intent. Some ceremonies, like marriage, create a conscious binding. Others, free binding, as in ceremonies designed to support a couple achieving a clean divorce. Some support life changes, such as life passage ceremonies, and so on. The most important thing to remember about ritual and ceremony is that it really works. One must be mindful to intend what best serves all concerned, lest our ceremonies unwittingly turn into curses and sorcery. My people are from many walks of life. The ceremonies they draw from me are wide and varied also. These living ceremonies, drawn from the moment, are perfect to the occasion. I know they did not originate from me. Instead, they come from the imprint of the ancient ceremonies of my teacher's people. I thought he was trying to brand his ceremonies into my brain, but in truth, he implanted them in my heart. Under his relentless tutorage, I learned to live life as a ceremony, every breath a prayer. He taught me to live in a sacred way. It's a gift beyond measure, one for which I can never repay my old teacher. He's gone from this earth, but I still carry his songs in my heart, though they never pass my lips. Instead, echoes of their notes imbue the living ceremonies I perform with the ancient power of truth. Over the years, I've come to recognize the principles behind the ceremonies that are built in this way. This has enabled me to create protocols for my students to follow in building their own living ceremonies based on ancient, tried-and-true principles. By creating living ceremony based on these protocols, anyone can access the power of nature in order to live their lives in a sacred way. Our guest this hour, LINDE, is an expert on ritual. He and his wife Judy authored the book Taking Sacred Back, the complete guide designing and sharing group ritual. Judy and NELS are ritualists, authors, and community leaders. They spent 20 plus years as presenters and teachers. After this commercial break, I'll introduce NELS, and together we'll delve into the sacred art and power of group ritual. So don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is LINDE. Together with his wife, Judy, he authored the book, Taking Sacred Back, the complete guide to designing and sharing group ritual. Their website, www.hawkdancing.com. I love that website. Nels, thank you for joining us on The Science of Magic.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Right. It's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to this. Let's start with something real simple. What's your definition of ritual?
Well, I'm about prepared for that because while I speak off the cuff a lot, this is what we used as a definition from our book about community ritual. A community ritual is a set of actions, gestures, and words offered within a large group to benefit its shared spiritual and emotional needs and interests. And, that's a pretty broad definition. It doesn't delve too much into the particular intent, but that's the kind of definition of ritual that we were working with in our book.
Well, I like that a lot. It leaves it open to serve the people, doesn't it?
Yes. And the ritual is all about service. So.
Yeah. How's it different from ceremony, or is it?
Well, a ceremony is oftentimes already comes to it with a prescribed nature, like a wedding or a birth, or rites of passage often have things that are associated with them, and so you kind of know what to expect. In a ritual, it's a much broader context. You can accomplish many things within a ritual, and they're not, you can, in most cases, use the words interchangeably. I believe a ritual is a little more encompassing and can include more activities.
So like a ceremony is a little more set, a ritual can be more custom?
It can be more custom, more unique. You're not really bound by any tradition. And so there's certainly ceremonial aspects to any ritual. A ritual can be totally a participatory thing and not something that's presented to other people.
Okay. Seeing how this is the science of magic, what are the principles behind ritual? Why do you think it works?
Well, I think ritual, it sends signals directly to our subconscious. As Joseph Campbell said, when you're participating in a ritual, you are participating in a myth. And it connects us with those kind of deeper mysteries that we encounter in our lives that we may not even, know or understand. And that connection is what makes ritual so special.
Do you think that the repetition of ritual empowers it more than just doing it once?
Well, certainly, that is the power of ritual within a tradition. The repetition of a ritual opening or a ritual process or a general script connects you with a tradition that may have gone on for tens, 20s, hundreds, or thousands of years. And that has its own benefits. Working outside of tradition, you also have certain benefits because you have each experience has to be encountered as its own process and own ceremony. So it's they're both ritual, but they're really two different animals.
So, I've married a lot of people, and what I find really fun is there's the marriage ceremony, but within the marriage ceremony, I would devise rituals for the couple that was specific to them and to where they were and to the group they were with and the religion that they were in. So there's a time when you can kind of combine the two. Would you speak to that?
Well, actually, it's just coming up. We're going to be officiating at a wedding this upcoming weekend. And the couple one of the things they're going to be doing in their ceremony is exchanging pocket watches that are the old wind by hand time. And so part of their commitment to each other is to keep their watches in sync and to always have that on their person as a symbol of their connection and their commitment over time.
Okay.
So that's something that was added to a fairly traditional ceremony that really reflects how they feel about it.
I love that personalization because it makes it mean so much more for the couple or whoever that the ceremony is performed for.
Right.
And
in rites of passage, rites of passage is just one aspect that we cover in our book, and that's one area where the idea of taking sacred back has really, in a wide mainstream kind of way, been brought to our society, and that people are feeling empowered to, when they have a wedding, when there's a death, when there's a birth, all those rites of passage that we encounter, they're feeling more free to design the ceremony, the ritual, so that it is the most meaningful for them.
That's nice, and it's living that way. It's not just the same old, and I think that people can really get behind it and participate on a deeper level when it is living ceremony. It's appropriate to the time and the people. Do you agree?
Absolutely. That's my wife and I were both raised Catholic back in the days of the Latin Mass, and that old style of religious ceremony really is rare to find, but that familiarity kind of brought us to the nature of ritual. But then, as with a lot of people, the personal meaning for us in that ritual has been lost. So we've taken a lot of those feelings that we had as young people, being exposed to the magic of ceremony, and brought them to kind of a modern interpretation of finding personal and sacred meaning.
So where do you get the principles that you use?
Most of our book is based on our personal experience. Both my wife and I, separately early on, were involved in creating public rituals for both festivals, for individual groups, and as you work doing ritual, you find what works and what doesn't. And a lot of those principles are very simple things. They're simple things that are drawn from theater production or from public speaking or, just community leadership skills. But, when people get to ceremony, oftentimes they forget everything they've learned. And so we're trying to organize that material in a way that people can use it as a resource to improve the engagement that happens within their rituals.
So are you providing a matrix or a structure around which they can design their own ceremony so that it has that consistency and the power?
Well, yeah. We start with, the whole first part of the book is about planning your intention and defining, exactly what it is you're trying to do. A lot of people have maybe they're tasked with doing some kind of harvest celebration for Pagan Pride Day or some other organization that is, in a public forum, and you can immediately leap to ideas that for what a harvest means. But a harvest can have many aspects. It can relate to sacrifice, personal sacrifice. It can relate to the land. It can relate to the plants. It can relate to the joy of having a harvest. And we encourage people to start out and define their intention for this particular ritual. And then we present lots of different options for how to elaborate that intention and use the intention to identify the things that are moving that intention forward and not just add it as fluff.
So how do rituals differ from culture to culture that you've noticed? Like if you're doing it for different groups of people or just from different cultures?
Well, we've worked with both groups that are like business groups or particular. Most of our work has come within the pagan community, which is a broad spectrum of spiritual beliefs, and so different groups have different structures. The heathen or Asatru structure is more kind of a open toast and boast kind of community gathering. Oftentimes, Wiccan groups have their own structure for how they make a space sacred, but the actual intention of the ritual can be usually applied within any of those structures, and that's what we're trying to promote with the book, is that it isn't whatever tradition you work in, you can apply a lot of these principles to making a ritual either inside your tradition or outside of your tradition for a more public audience that is effective and engaging.
So it makes it more general and at the same time more precise, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're, ritual is meant to touch people and to draw people into their spirituality and into their subconscious, and you need to be very specific in how you engage people in order to do that. At the same time,
Nels, we're going to have to take a short break. I want to pick up on how we can be specific in ritual in order to enfold people on the other side. Nels and I will return to our discussion after the news at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to The Science of Magic. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka, Previous broadcasts of thought-provoking episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We will be back, so don't you go away. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. Visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is NELS LINDE. Together with his wife, Judy, he authored the book, Taking Sacred Back, the complete guide to designing and sharing group ritual. Their website is www.hawkdancing.com. Now, as we were talking about how to enfold the participants with ritual, can you go into that a little further?
Well, earlier when we talked about ceremony, oftentimes ceremony is based on words. As in a wedding, there's always the words about, do you take this person as your wife? And those words are critical to the ceremony. But a lot of times words touch us on some of the most superficial levels. So we try to encourage the use of all the senses, the visual, the sound, even the smell and taste when it's appropriate, to draw people into engagement. And that's, I guess, one of the descriptors we use to assess ritual is that, every ritual starts out at 10, and then every time you say, and now we will, it drops one number, because those words take us out of the ritual mindset.
Ooh, would you go into that a little further?
Well, everybody's been in a ceremony or a service where people are just starting to engage with the intention, whether it's joy or celebration or some deeper form of transformation, and then the ritual facilitator says, okay, now this is what I want you to feel, or now the words are imposed over those connections we're making through ritual. So we try to promote a ritual design method where wherever possible you present a experience that gets you to where you want to go rather than words of direction.
Okay, so instead of imposing the energy on a person or imposing what their experience is going to be, you create the environment and then allow them to have their personal experience?
Absolutely. It's words of direction, from our earliest experience in school, oftentimes immediately separate us from our experience, and particularly any spiritual experience. We're in ritual, we're really creating a form of magic where people embrace something deeper than the surface. And so, every ritual will have words. It's not that we don't use words, but we try to limit the words to the very essential and make as much of the ritual an experience as possible.
Okay, so What checks and balances do you put in place when designing a ritual to avoid imposing your wills on others or working without permission?
Well, there is. It's always good to prepare your ritual audience before a ritual. I mean, if you're going to, if there's going to be touching in the ritual, particularly if there's going to be scents or taste or something that people, nowadays people have many allergies. There's many sensitivities that people have, and you do need to use some words ahead of time to prepare people for the experience. But we also like to have a well-designed ritual will unfold before you like a story and lead you somewhere. And that can be through sound, through song, through movement, through visual props, through all kinds of different methods that get you where you want to go, rather than, a facilitator's word saying, and now we're going to feel happy, or now we're going to celebrate. Why not make the ritual encourage people to celebrate and get there that way?
So how do personal ritual and group ritual differ? Do you work with both?
Well, both Judy and I have worked within several different traditions. Most of our life eclectic, so it was pretty flexible. But the difference in a personal ritual is that you can design it. You know your audience completely. It's for you or a small group of people that you work with. You know start out knowing what the intention is, and oftentimes, as we talked about in a tradition, you have an overall ritual structure to get you there. So in some ways, those rituals are much easier to work with when you have an audience that is very diverse. It could be, men and women, young and old, people in touch with their spirituality, and people very new to the experience. And you really have to assess your audience and devise a story, in a sense, that will touch the majority of the people in your audience.
I've found that too, which brings me to attention and focus and intent. When you're working with a group that is so diverse that the intention, the intent, the focus is not on the ritual, it seems to kind of kill the thing. Have you experienced that? And if so, how do you manage that?
Well, clearly you can't. A popular theme for rituals is ecological or healing the earth, or some kind of broad-based intention, and oftentimes those kind of rituals are difficult because the intention is so broad. So maybe if you have a particular stream in your area that needs to be cleaned up or needs the loving hands of people to improve, it's better to make it a focus that is very real for the people involved, rather than something vague and general that people may not be able to embrace from a real diverse perspective.
Okay, so in other words, you keep it simple, right? The KISS method.
Keep it simple. Keep the focus on something that the broader the group of people you have, in a way, you almost have to narrow the focus so that there's something real that they can see they're working with. When you do a ritual, say, to just heal the earth, that's such a broad topic, and there's so many ways that a person could look at what healing the earth means, that it's hard to create a ritual that engages people truly, because they don't really know what they're engaging in.
Got it. Everybody has a different idea, and so it's just kind of, you're getting a fruit salad out of the deal. Right,
yeah.
So what do you see that empowers ritual? What empowers it?
Well, the word we use a lot is engagement. Is people, however you design your ritual, it needs to draw people in to participate, to contribute, and to express themselves. And the amazing thing we found about ritual is sometimes in ritual, a person that is very much withdrawn or isolated may come out of their shell and sing or dance in a way that they normally wouldn't. And that kind of, in a lot of ways, that participation in ritual is what helps make it really magic, is drawing people out of their normal waking selves.
Okay. I have about a minute left. Can you tell us, can ritual be misused? And I want to take up with this on the other side. And if so, how do you avoid misusing ritual?
Well, we do talk a little bit about, ritual can be used as an educational tool. It can be used even for political ends. But generally, those purposes have to be used with a lot of caution and a lot of clear focus. You don't want to try and take people to somewhere that is not from their inner core. An example is, a ritual to draw people to protest on the street may not work very well because that's not the expression that a lot of people have, whereas a ritual to empower people to support each other is maybe something that everyone can get behind.
Very nice, very nice. And we'll talk more about ritual and when good rituals go bad on the other side. Nels and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous transformative broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. Our website is www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is NELS LINDE. Together with his wife, Judy, he authored the book, Taking Sacred Back, the complete guide to designing and sharing group ritual. Their website is www.hawkdancing.com. Now, as we were just about to talk about when good rituals go bad, can you give us an example of a ritual that did not go so well?
Well, oftentimes, most of the time when a ritual goes bad, it's because there simply wasn't enough planning and visioning, and something totally unexpected happens. Either, you plan for people to move a certain way or to do a certain activity, and you didn't really think it through, and next thing you know, there's a milling crowd of people not knowing what's going on, and you're faced with trying to bring it back into some kind of alignment. So really thinking it through, planning it, even having a rehearsal, those are all really important things to avoid those kind of disasters.
At the same time, it seems like, the life is different moment to moment. And do you leave room in your rituals for spontaneity and moving within the moment?
Well, absolutely. In fact, most rituals have some kind of energy component, whether it's you want to call it an energy raising or a collective expression of energy, and you want to structure that so you have a presentation of this is when it's beginning and this is when it's reaching its climax and this is when it's ending. But what happens during that time, you're totally dependent on the engagement, the intimacy, the trust that you've built in the whole course of the ritual to make that a powerful act. And how it's expressed, you don't know what it's going to be.
So the principles of ritual from culture to culture, I know they vary, but a lot of them use earth connection, like working with the directions or with the elements in order to empower and balance the ritual. Do you do that? And if so, how do you incorporate that?
Well, my wife and I come from a Wiccan background, so oftentimes we draw upon that kind of, calling of the directions, casting a circle, those kind of things. But our book also covers other kinds of rituals that don't use that structure because clearly, connecting to the world around us in some way and making the place where we are sacred, or in some traditions, there's no point in making your area of doing ritual sacred because they simply accept it is sacred. So why do it in a ceremony? But all those kind of methods, draw upon the power of the world around us. And usually there's some way that is expressed. So we leave it open as to how to do that, but certainly it's almost always included.
Talk a little to me about sacred space and ritual.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, in a tradition ritual, sacred space is often, an essential component of creating the place where the magic of that tradition takes place. In a community ritual, a sacred space is often about creating a place where people feel safe to be engaged, where they feel safe with the people around them, where they feel connected enough to each other and the ritual space to be intimate with maybe even strangers. So the definition is a little bit different in a community ritual.
So it sounds to me like you're talking about common neutral heart ground. So in other words, this is a heart issue, isn't it?
In a lot of ways it is. It's for a ritual to be really effective, you're trying to touch people's hearts, touch people's spirituality, and it's not often safe in our general society walking around doing business to leave ourselves open for that. So we need to create a place where we feel like we can open up and share on that level.
So would you mind speaking a little bit about how we can start to bring that open-hearted space into our daily lives and still be protected? Do you think that there's ceremonies we can do on a daily basis or something that can help with that?
Well, this is more on a personal level. I mean, my wife and I's personal spirituality involves some work with ancestors and some work with, deities that we empower us and aid us. And certainly being able to do that on a personal level is going to help you working with larger groups. But it's also very different because, rarely do I talk about my personal spirituality when I'm facilitating a ritual because it's not about me. It's about the community I'm working with and what their needs are and, not about my agenda or my ego or anything else.
I find that I always prepare I do personal ritual to prepare myself for public ritual so that I can show up in a good way and be present for the people in their way. Do you do that as well?
Yeah, it's and you'll probably find this with most ritualists, which is a term we use for people who facilitate ritual, is that usually the day of a ritual or the day or even the hour or minutes before, there's always a little quiet time to kind of center yourself, remember why you're there, and much better than a well-written script is a well-centered facilitator, because even if the words are not as you wrote them, what comes out of you will be from your heart.
That's so, so true. And you have to be able to be in that heart-centered place to come from there. And I think ritual is a wonderful way to get there. Before we run out of time, would you mind telling people where they can find your books?
Well, it's available through our website at hawkdancing.com. It's published by Llewellyn, and you can certainly get it through Llewellyn Publishers. And it's available at all the major markets, Amazon and any of the major booksellers, and most bookstores will be carrying it, or certainly asked to get it in. We've had really good luck getting the book spread around the country, and so it shouldn't be too hard to find.
Do you have something that you'd like to share with our listeners about ritual and how they can incorporate it in their personal lives?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Something I want to tell or show?
Yeah, I said, do you have something that you'd show and tell? Do you have something that you'd like to share with our listeners about how they can incorporate ritual in their daily lives?
Well, I think, as certainly as Americans, from a very mixed and diverse culture, we often don't take the time to make the events of our lives sacred. And, really that's what life is all about. So I would recommend taking, everything about your life, and when there's an event that is important to you, design a little ritual, a ceremony that recognizes that importance, because that's what living is all about.
So through ritual, we can live our life in a more sacred way. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's the whole intention of the title, is that we, in our daily lives and in our community lives, can incorporate ritual to give our whole life more meaning and connect to our spirituality.
And it doesn't seem to matter what your particular religious philosophy is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, even within tradition rituals, you can express yourself as completely and as intimately as you want with your friends, with your book club, with your sports team. There's no limit to where that connection can be valuable.
NELS, we're out of time, but this has just been so wonderful. Thank you so much for you and your wife. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you live in a sacred way.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation.